have a special council meeting to discuss ordinance number 12, 2022. Clerk, could you please give the first reading of ordinance number 14, 2022?
Ordinance number 14, 2022, amending Ordinance 9, 2022, compensation of service department part-time labor positions section and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 14, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 14, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance number 14, 2022. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
just ask Jonathan, what's this going to do to that line item? That line item's used up almost every year. We're going to have to do additional appropriation later in the year, or what?
Mr. President,
Mr. Stuchel?
as we discussed at the last meeting, we feel that we're in pretty good shape based on the fact that some of the help is being staggered, and it's not as though they're going to be fully staffed the whole way through the summer with 6 people. So we pretty much feel at this point that we're going to be okay, and with what we've already appropriated at this point for the part-time help.
Any other remarks? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Rickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Seven ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption of ordinance 14?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to adopt ordinance number 14, 2022.
Second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 14, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Rickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays. Ordinance number 14, 2022 is adopted as read. That will conclude our special council meeting for this evening. Can I have a motion to adjourn from the special council meeting?
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that, Mr.
A
President.
motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Hausfeld to adjourn from the special council meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. All right. We will roll right into the committee of the whole. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the approval of the written minutes of the April 29th council meeting?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to approve the written minutes of the April 28th council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Hausfeld to approve the written minutes of the April 28th council meeting. And are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So ordered. Just to make this official, clerk, will you please call the roll to make sure everybody's here?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Rickwig?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
All right. Let the record show all 7 members are present, as if we didn't know that. All right, we'll move to reports of administrative officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, again, I'd like to thank all the volunteers and donors who have made the community garden be able to come to fruition. The planting has begun, and there are only a few beds available, so act quickly if you are interested before we make it available for other people that have already reserved a bed to have a potential second opportunity. At this time, I'd also like to discuss the proposed resolution number 3 for the grant application for the Ross Park track. And actually, our recreation director, Paul Schildmeyer, is here, who actually could give us a little more information about what is being proposed, the type of material, and kind of the purpose of the grant.
So we applied for this last year too. There we go. All right. So we applied for this grant through NatureWorks last year also, and we were denied the grant, so we were given some direction by the gentleman who, I guess, wades through these grants and proposals to apply again for this. So we're going to resubmit by June 1. We've got most of the things together. We were basically approached by the schools for this more than anything. You've got St. Bernard that attempts to run their track and cross country around Vine Street, dodging mud puddles and so forth, and occasionally down at Ross, but you've got football, you've got soccer. Roger Bacon runs on the streets and then sends their kids up to UC periodically for track practice, where I can speak from personal experience. You drop a kid off in Clifton and you hope that practice goes the full 2 hours. Otherwise, they're kind of wandering around UC's campus after they get kicked off by the UC track team. So both of the schools are pretty anxious to get this done, both from a competitive standpoint and probably from a safety standpoint, too, for their athletes. Not to mention a 3-lane all-weather track. I mean, Ross Park is pretty busy down there daily with P&G residents. Everybody's knees would benefit, no question about that. So we did get the, what we're applying for. I think the actual number, I'd have to look, it's either 150 or 160,000. I don't know why 160 sounds, I'm sorry, I have it over here. But we're looking at about $135,000 to $140,000 for, we've got a good base down there already with the existing track. So it would be more laying the asphalt, and then you put the all-weather, kind of the spongier material. Now, it would be a 3-lane because there's just not enough room for a 4. And you have to have 6 for competition. So this is strictly a resident benefit plus the 2 schools somewhere to practice. This is not a competitive track meets being hosted at Lower Ross or anything like that. We had 3 different options, and I think the best one was kind of the spongiest. So we're looking at about $135,000 to $140,000 with a potential another $15,000 to $20,000 to lay a concrete curb on the inside of that, so it does have some separation from the actual field. You know, you can lay boards over it for football and soccer to enter and exit, and baseball, because we do have, you know, softball and baseball down there too. You can run gators and other maintenance equipment. They don't recommend a lot of vehicular traffic, but the maintenance vehicles and gators and so forth are no problem on this surface.
Mr. President.
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Paul, when you laid out the dollars of 150 to 160, is that, how much does the grant cover, or is that our cost with the grant involved?
This is, you know, I know I said this 3 or 4 years ago with Ross Park too, so I don't want to, you know, spring anything on anyone, but right now our idea is that this grant is going to cover the entire cost. And I've also gotten actually written and verbal from one of the schools right now that they would be more than willing to chip in to make this happen. So my plan right now is for this not to cost the city anything, except, of course, the maintenance and upkeep.
Mr. President.
Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Peggy, I thought on the track, and we talked about the COVID money being possibly used for the parks, and is this totally separate? And have we utilized any COVID money for rehabbing our parks?
I'm sorry, that's on the agenda for a little bit more, but we had discussed that we were not going to use the COVID money on this because we can get this money and the COVID money to be used to fix up all the play sets in the parks.
And then, Paul, on this, how are we going to prevent people from driving on it? I know a lot of people drive the tracks to drop stuff off at the shelters. I know we had the one person doing donuts in the park. You know, what's going to prevent people from driving and tearing this up?
2 large steel posts. I mean, really, you've got benches, flower pots, typically then aluminum bleachers. There's only one access in and out of that most of the time if the bleachers are in the spots that they're supposed to be. So I would definitely encourage probably 2 removable for city vehicles, but 2 posts. I mean, whether it be a post or, at Upper Ross, they've got a big, enormous concrete baseball that you can put in there. So there's different things. There's no other way to get on there unless you hop the 2-foot wall with a vehicle, but we could easily block that off where it can only fit gators and maintenance.
Mr. President,
Mr. Brickway.
just a thought, like you're talking about, it is mostly with the wall and everything, it's blocked. And it sounds to me like there's a window, especially if schools are gonna chip in some money, you could always put a fence to clean it up, some type, just a chain link fence where you got a gate for the city vehicles and put the boards down. Kind of like, I remember Reading with their all-weather track, they had a dedicated spot where they go across, and when that traffic's going to be there, like you said, you protect it, you put boards down, people, Anyway, I think it's a great idea, great project, and I see a little bit of open area if that's a problem that we can easily, there's just not that much room to fence off. That's my thought on that.
Yeah, the biggest drawback is going to be with the 4. Honestly, I don't know if we're renting out all 4, if we're still doing 2 at a time, but the picnic shelters, and we do. I mean, technically, you're not supposed to drive your vehicle around there, but we do have people that drive their vehicle around to drop things off. We discussed in years past, actually over the last 2 years, with all the baseball up at Ross, is bringing back that position down at the park that we used to have just a few years ago, I believe. I think Mark Mindorf did it, where you have an employee down there with the gator for maybe 8 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. Memorial Day to Labor Day, you've got a lot of baseball being played. We could use somebody down there to even sweep the field in between games to extend the life of that. Check restrooms, picnic shelters, have the gator with you to help the people transport their supplies over to the picnic shelters. But, again, that's something, that's probably a conversation down the road. But that would be my solution to that.
Any other comments?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
this is not relative to that, but Paul, while you're here, I've been down there at Ross Park lately watching Roger Bacon. In that one side, that gets a visitor side where they warm up for pitching, that fence is starting to pull away from a couple of different places around that area.
Okay. The first base side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tommy?
Any other questions?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion for Resolution 3, 2022 on the table.
I'll second that.
Before we get to that vote, just a question. Do we have any idea when we might get this grant?
I believe that it says that they make their decisions in September or October. We weren't notified of our rejection until November, but I would think that by September, this would be something that we would probably prep and try to do in, February, March of next year.
The only reason I ask is if people already have rented the park, and I know we're not supposed to drive, but we know everybody does, just to kind of make them aware. So it shouldn't affect this year at all.
No, the
Okay.
earliest it would happen is October, and I think the reservations for shelters end on October 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. So a motion by Mr. Taberky, seconded by Ms. Bettinghouse, by Mr. Ray Culbertson, to place resolution number 3, 2022 on the table. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Floor is still yours, Mayor. That's it?
I'm done, thank you.
All right. Auditor, Ms. Brickwig.
Thank you, Mr. President. The expenses for April were, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this wrong. Okay, the expenses for April were $4,079,006.10. These expenses compared to next year, and this is a year-to-date, by the way, are up $12,265.67. The revenues through the end of April were $5,344,206.86. Our revenues are up $1,177,064.14. I also wanted to let council know that I will be starting to work on the summer budget, in hopes that we can get it voted on either at a special meeting before the committee, the whole in June, or the final June meeting, depending on when I get it all prepared. And I'm asking the department heads to start getting me their budget so I can prepare that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Mr.
President.
President.
Mr. Berkey.
Before, we haven't gotten those forms yet from the auditor for the conflict of interest or anything like that?
The auditor hasn't been in yet this year. I
Okay.
sent them a message 2 days ago asking them when they plan on coming in, but they haven't come in.
Who else?
Mr. President.
Mr. Bob Copeland.
On the agenda under Jonathan, discuss easement of the St. Bernard Pub.
That's getting
Oh, we're
taken.
Nixon.
Yeah, that's,
Another meeting.
that'll be another meeting, but yes, it's still in the future, but not tonight.
All right. Level Director, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you. I had prepared ordinance number 15 for your review, but in talking with a couple of the, it deals with the VIVA plan, amendment to the VIVA plan and the VIVA trust, which was discussed a couple meetings ago by Chief Simos and Mr. Paul. In speaking with a couple of the trustees of the plan later today, it's not quite ready for you. We need to go back and we need to tweak a couple of things. So I'm not going to ask that it be heard next week. We'll come back with an amended view for you to look at. And Mr. Taberky, I did talk with the administrator about the budget impact, and basically the maximum, I asked her what the maximum out-of-pocket expenditures would likely be for us. And she basically said, calculate the number of participants by up to 800 a year, and of course their administration fees. So what I need to do then is compare the amounts we've been spending versus that dollar amount, so I can at least get that difference for you. So I should have that for you later. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, I have the statement from First State Bank. Our funds down there at the end of April, April 30th, 2022, totaled $5,666.65. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Pohl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I want to present council with the play parks. So I have bids we have 9 play parks. So I went out and got bids to redo all of them. We have $400,000 for COVID money, which is allowable for the play parks. The total for all 9 play parks, 7 which will be done completely over and 2 which will just be revamped, is $685,896.48. That includes all new mulch, boundaries, and all the play parks. We went through Sourcewell, and Sourcewell actually gave us pretty many substantial discounts on all that stuff. So, and that also includes Alpine. So what I'd like to discuss is with the council, I would like for them to appropriate the $286,000 so that we can have them all done at the same time.
Any
Thank you, Mr.
comments?
President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
Tommy, is that something you can, the quote, is that something you can share with us at some point, just so we can get an idea what we're buying?
Yes, I have all, yes.
That you'll
I'll make
email
copies and
to
put
us
them in
or-
your mailboxes.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky.
no, I'll get shot for asking, but did you know one company wouldn't go out for bid or anything?
This went through Sourcewell, which eliminates all that. It's National Joint Protection, or purchasing agency. So basically, she goes out and gets the cheapest prices for us, and the bid's taken care of.
Anyone else?
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickway.
I'm the one that talked Tommy into coming to ask you for the money. If you go around and look at our parks, they're all in very poor condition. And I said with this little bit of extra money, I would like to see us be able to do all the parks. I mean, the idea is to try to attract young families here. I brought my grandchildren to a few of them, and they couldn't even play on them, else they would have got hurt. So I suggested that we do them all instead of eliminating certain ones, since they're all in such poor condition. We have over $7 million in the reserves right now. So it's not even 300,000. That's not a whole lot. And the idea was we've been saving for the last 2 or 3 years because we had so much extra income. I would encourage as a resident that council put the money towards fixing up our parks. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke,
second one done this year?
Mr. President,
Mr. Poe.
yeah, she's ready to start as soon as possible.
I make a motion to put an ordinance on the table for additional appropriation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld, to place an ordinance on the table for $286,000, is that correct? Okay, for additional appropriation for play park equipment. Any other remarks?
Tommy, do you know when, how long it takes? How long it's gonna take to get them all done?
I believe,
Approximate.
I would think if they start, they're gonna do it more toward the end of the year, so there's less playing occurring.
Okay.
But I agree with Peggy. When I went around with her, she would point out stuff that you and I wouldn't pay any attention to. And then when you look at it, you think, uh-oh, you know, and it's like they're, a lot of them are in bad shape. 2 of them, she said, are not, so they're gonna clean them up and send us bolts to fix the other ones, and she said you should be fine with those too. So, and the salesman before her said the exact same thing and picked the same 2 parks as she did. So,
No, yeah, so I don't disagree with that. I totally agree with getting these parts fixed up. I just wonder if you had a time estimate and what was actually gonna be in there, and you're gonna copy that, so
yeah,
that's
I'm
great.
gonna copy them right
Okay.
now for you, when Mr. President is finished with me.
Mr. President? Go ahead.
Ms.
Just real quick, how long has the current play systems been down there? You know, what's the average life expectancy for these?
Our current ones have, I think they're 18 years old. So, and she said that went well beyond the life of it. But I think she said 10 years. But that being said, I've only replaced 1 slide. And since I've been here, the rest we have patched and painted and coated over, and my hat's off to them. But that 1 slide, I don't know that some of you were here, it was $8,000 for 1 slide. And it's like, you know, and then the next day you go down and it's got graffiti on it. Thanks for painting it for us. Okay, so anyway, thank you.
Mr.
Ms.
President?
Hausfeld, first.
I want to thank you for doing it, because I know I called you quite a few times last year to fix Tower Park when we were over there playing on that quite a few times. I'm just curious what is going down on it.
Mr. President?
Mr. Poe.
There's, it's called black mulch, but it's rubberized, and it actually has a fall factor, which makes it OSHA compatible. They go by the tallest apparatus on that play park, and if a child fell, it protects the child with that amount of height. So, and it's all treated, so there'll be very few weeds, if at all, you know, that we can't control. And plus it'll have new borders, so everything. And my main concern was, I said I don't want missiles laying around, you know, where you can take some mulch, rubber mulch, and fire it like a rock. And she goes, this won't go very far. And I said, okay. So that was on my mind.
Thank you.
Mr. Good. Any other comments?
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickley?
I'd like to ask council's wishes. We've been using the miscellaneous fund, as I explained, for the community garden and putting the revenues in the miscellaneous revenues. And so I was just going to ask, it's starting, and we've had to use it for a few other oddballs, and I was just wondering if I could put an additional 10,000 in the miscellaneous, just for, not for the community garden, but to carry us through, hopefully, close to the end of the year. Since I'm doing an ordinance, I was just gonna wait till we had an ordinance.
I have no problems with that. Mr. President? Tommy, I know with the community garden, you're buying wood chips. The service department, everyone get the chipper going, we create our own wood chips for it?
Mr. President?
Mr. Poe?
The wood chips are free. They come from B&B Tree Service that I've been using since I've been here. So he dumps for us down there, and we use it out throughout the village.
Can we use our own chipper, make our own chips, so we don't have to pay to haul the trees away?
Yeah, Mr. President, I believe that Eddie is working diligently on that, to be truthful with you. I think he wants it back in use. Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? So, Mr. DeBerke, you made the motion to, can you amend it to add the 10,000 as well?
I'll second that.
Second this, okay. So a motion by Mr. DeBerke, an amended motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Ms. Housefeld to add an additional $10,000 to miscellaneous as well as the 286 approximately, whatever the correct amount is. All right. All those in favor of placing that ordinance on the table, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Tax Commissioner / Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have April's tax report. Tax collection for April was $1,224,361. April of 2022 is up 43% from April of 2021. Tax refunds for April were $121,913. Delinquent tax collected with capital recovery was $4,542. Delinquent tax collected with the Ohio Attorney General's office was $17,975, and taxes paid through the e-file portal were $28,474. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. DeBerke.
No report.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickwig.
Just want to remind people, there's a block watch on the 19th at 7 o'clock. Also, I'm sorry, what? 6:30, I'm sorry. And also, the fire department has completed its annual hose testing. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Just the block watch meeting here.
Down to the
Police,
safety center.
back down, please, okay. Sorry. Service, Ms. Housefeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the we have collected $26,406.93 for the month of February from Cincinnati Water Works for the trash collection fee. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just the next CIC meeting is the 24th of the month, right here in council chambers at 6 o'clock. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
No report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. The Recreation Department will be hosting summer fall signups at the Aquatic Center on Saturday, May 21st and Saturday, June 4th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please stop by to sign up for the summer swim lessons, fall say soccer, and lollipop soccer. Swim lessons are at a cost of $20 for all ages. Say soccer is $40 for residents, $60 for non-residents, and this is kids aged 6 to 13. Lollipop soccer is $20 for children aged 3 to 5. They will also be pre-selling summer passes to the Aquatic Center on those dates for the 2022 season. The Aquatic Center will be open Saturday, May 28th, and the hours of operation will be 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thanks, Mr. President. I've been asked to pass along thank you from Mr. Joe Thoman, Matthew 25 Ministries, and St. Clement. Their drive for Ukraine was a big success. I don't even know if they made it all the way through the weekend, but they collected, I think, more than they expected to. So thank you to citizens of St. Bernard.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Nope. All right.
Mr. President, I did forget something.
Mr. DeBerke.
I don't know if Cindy, Valerie, or Jonathan, last year, the big discussion about Airbnbs, it's starting to be party season again. Where do we stand? What's going on with that stuff?
Mr. President, so
Mr. Stuchel.
that is still in process, actually a cooperative effort right now, currently by, of course, Valerie and Jerry Stoker. So that is forthcoming and is going to be done, so that hopefully we'll have something here shortly.
Yes. Mr. President, I have something to add to that. I do watch the Ohio Municipal League and legislation that's active and coming down the pike. And one of those items is the state is trying to put controls in place where it would limit us to have our own legislation to, you know, monitor these Airbnbs and stuff, and that is in the works right now. So I think that's going to hold us up a little bit on that as well. But I keep watching. I let Tommy know.
Okay. All right. Then I should,
Mr. President?
Mr. Paul.
I have one more. I want to answer Chris Schultmeyer's question before he asks it. I have incorporated training, so our guys will be doing 1 or 2 of the park beds on their own. The borders will be laid, but we will be putting the mulch in.
How'd you know I was going to ask that?
Because you're looking it over, and I'm going to know that you're going to see, oh, we're going to do that. So some of them are there. So that's for training so that we can care for them the rest of the time they're there.
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
thanks, Tommy. I was going to ask that. And I also wondered if you thought about, and I'm not recommending or against or for this, if we could do the demolition, because I'm just adding up the demolition part of this and take the existing out. But just a thought. You don't even have to answer that now, but thanks, Mr. President.
All right. Anyone else? All right, then I show one resolution and one ordinance, additional appropriation ordinance for next meeting. The next council meeting will be Thursday, May 26th at 7 p.m. Next committee of the whole will be June 9th. This time I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Ms. Housefeld.
just a heads up, June 9th, I will be out of town. With that being said, Mr. President, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
A motion by Ms. Housefeld, seconded by Mr. Ray Culberson to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.